I do like being right. Ask my ex-husband.
Happens every time.
It's the Boris Dirk podcast. The Heat had a new big three today. Today's big three included Gabe Vincent. Before we get going on game two, Max, the Heat were third this year in free throw differential and second in free throw percentage differential, meaning they usually get more free throws than the team they're playing, and they usually make a higher percentage of the free throws than the team they play, which is interesting because the Heat weren't good at much this regular season. But that is they were an elite free throw team, which I was thinking about tonight because the Heat shot 2 free throws in game one. They shot 22 tonight. The Nuggets shot 20.
Yeah. There was a lot of discourse following game one about how the series was already over. Clearly, that's not the case. Both of us expected at least a decently long series coming into this. You expected a long one with Nuggets in 7. I had Nuggets in 6, but did say I thought 5 was more likely than 7. So we'll see where that goes from there. But yeah, I mean, at this point, everyone should know better than to count out the Heat after what we've seen from them throughout the first round against Milwaukee, coming back from multiple double-digit deficits in the fourth quarter in road games as well. No one really counted them out against the Knicks. They won that one pretty handily. But against Boston,
You did.
they're
You picked the Knicks and the Celtics, bastard.
It's true. It's true. They just have no talent. I don't understand it.
No, none of it makes sense, but you just need to accept our modern reality.
Yeah.
Also, quick plug for the anti-analytics world. Sometimes basketball isn't that complicated. Sometimes it's really as simple as which team came out with more effort.
Yep.
And the Nuggets outside of Jokic tonight were not ready to play. And sometimes it feels like the first quarter doesn't matter at all. And you're like, should I really be watching NBA first quarters anymore? The scores are so high. But we see time and time again that in close games, it ends up being a team's really lackadaisical first quarter that comes back to bite them. And that's what happened to the Nuggets today. It was brutal. They were not winning any 50-50 balls, and it just looked like the Heat wanted it more. And that, I feel like obviously a lot more than that happened, but that's where I wanted to start.
Yeah. I mean, it was 10-2 at the first TV timeout. The Heat were getting open looks. I wrote the Strus is loose early in the first quarter.
Dr. Strus. Oh, the places he'll go.
He was just springing for wide open corner threes, he's dead on threes, anything he wanted. Gabe Vincent was getting what he wanted out of threes. We'll talk more about him later.
Yeah.
But yeah, throughout the game, the Nuggets did not display the requisite level of effort and intensity on the defensive end. They're really going to have to, we can talk a little bit more about looking ahead to game 3 in a little bit, but they're going to have to figure out what they want to do with some of these screening actions, because there were a lot of points, particularly in the first half, where 2 shooters were coming together and 2 guys would go with one of the shooters when it was like Strus and Robinson, which should be an easy switch because they're pretty equivalent players on the offensive end, and guys who can guard one of them can 100% guard the other one. And their advantage comes from getting space off of screens. So if you just negate that space by switching, you're just neutralizing that action basically. But it seemed like they didn't know if they wanted to switch in the first half. So that led to a lot of open looks. And then the second half, they seemed to make the adjustment of let's switch everything no matter what. And the Heat were able to take advantage of that eventually by just getting easy switches of Jamal Murray onto Jimmy Butler or Nikola Jokic onto Jimmy Butler. And then they took advantage of that over and over again down the stretch.
Yeah.
So,
and even in the second half, there was that moment where Christian Brown thought they were switching. Whoever the big was that he collided with did not think they were switching. And Gabe Vincent, off one off-ball screen, just gets a wide open 3. And he gave Christian Brown this look like, really? My job's going to be that easy? And that's when you knew the Heat were winning tonight, because there was a level of audacity to the road Warrior Heat tonight. The lapses were pretty simple. It was stuff like that, miscommunications. It was KCP lunging into 3-point shooters. And even if you think it's a soft call, sorry, it's just a call that's been made consistently for years now, it feels like. Simple things. And Mike Malone said after the game that the effort or lack thereof was concerning. And if the Nuggets don't win the title, Mike Malone might be getting the capital C corporate treatment, as Jeff Van Gundy said on the Low Post. Or Priscilla's pod. Good job, good job, good job. You're fired.
Yes, that's Michael Malone. But
oh fuck, I'm so disrespectful.
Yeah, no, he's gonna come after you. And I think, yeah, he seems to really thrive in the media setting of trying to like rile up his team, because I think he knows it's easy. After game one, they can look around and be like, oh, we got this in the bag. Like we could have played way better. We still beat them comfortably. We've got such talent advantage, like heat schmeat. But no, clearly, I mean, he probably tried to get them to believe they were still the underdogs in the series, which they obviously aren't, but they came out and just those KCP fouls, like you can't have those things, in a game. You lose the game by 3 points, and he fouled 2 3-point shooters where they made all 3 free throws on both times. And then you combine that with all the times they left guys wide open for 3-point shots. By the way, the Heat, after having a relatively cold game one, shot 50% from 3 in this game, or 49.5% from 3 in this game.
Yeah.
So you knew that black magic from 3-point land was going to come back at some point. I was going to say the Nuggets have to figure out some more of their defensive scheme and just make it more tailored to the personnel you're seeing. Like in the finals, it can't just be we're switching everything, or we're hedging, or however you want to do it. We're blitzing. It has to be tailored to personnel. Like on Jimmy Butler, we're going under. If it's a Jimmy Bam screen, it's like a heavy trap and then recover. I'm not saying that's what they should do, but you need to have scheme at this level, at this time of the year, that is centered around specific players and specific actions so that you know how to defend them.
Yeah. I think the Nuggets have made a smart choice, saying one of the things the Heat do well that we're going to concede is like the Bam 10-footer. Like
yes.
our drop coverage will just allow for that. And he might make a lot of them, but it's just not a shot that's going to kill us long term. And there were too many possessions in this game where instead of the Nuggets going to their bread and butter, which to me right now, often involves Jamal Murray, but also can be Jokic pick and roll with Gordon as the screener, when Gordon is the worst shooter on the floor for the Nuggets. Because he's so athletic and a strong finisher, you make him the screener. And he can catch lobs, and he offers vertical spacing, and everyone on the perimeter is a shooter. And I feel like the Nuggets just get great looks from that, and they didn't go back to it enough. Too many Nuggets possessions ended in like an MPJ bailout 3. And I don't think enough guys in our business, the media business, pat ourselves on the back quite enough. So I just want to say, like, I did point out MPJ after game one as a guy you can sort of isolate. And I think he's a guy you can goad into shooting more than Denver wants him to shoot. Jamal Murray is going to be clutch until his prime is over. And then he might still be clutch as like a 3-and-D 35-year-old vet. We've just seen him make tough shots in important moments time and time again now. But MPJ is a ball stopper, and it was allowed 2-for-8 in my opinion, because the Nuggets have such beautiful ball movement, because their superstar center has led the NBA in passes completed for half a decade. It just there are these warts in their offensive game where MPJ ends a possession where there's 12 seconds on the shot clock, and they can simply work for something higher percentage.
Yeah. And I mean, at home is where you'd expect MPJ to have his big shooting games. And he went 4 for 19, 4 for 20 in his first 2 games. You hope he can rediscover some of that hot shooting on the road, but obviously you would have liked to have it at home where it seems like it would come more naturally, but he's going to have to find it on the road. I thought in the first half, what I call the earth tones Nuggets lineup of green, brown, and brown. Yep. I thought they had a really good stretch in the first half, especially Christian Brown. He had a nice spurt. He hit all of his shots in the first half, got a few steals, got out in transition, played good defense. But in the second half, I thought that lineup got exposed a little bit by the Heat, and the Heat's strategy seems to be to help less now and make Jokic kind of play against himself and go for 40 or 50 points, which he's very capable of doing, but it's not in his nature to want to try to score the ball down on the floor every time. And there was a lot of talk about should they make Jokic a scorer rather than a passer. And after game one, and they seem to have kind of leaned a little bit in that direction, though not fully. And
yep, he took 10 shots in game one, 28 shots in game two.
Exactly. And the Nuggets are at their best when he's in that sort of like, when he's shooting 12 of 15 and has 13 assists and such. So, I mean, the Nuggets had some stretches in this game where they were really good. Like in the second quarter in particular, they played really good basketball. And then in the third, the Heat came out with another level of intensity, another level of energy. And the Heat made some adjustments too, starting Kevin Love. I don't know how much of an actual impact that had as opposed to just coming out with more energy. But I'm sure since it worked, they'll probably do it again in game three. And we probably should talk a little bit more about Bam because he had a really good defensive game. And I don't love the way that he scores. I just don't love his scoring game, but everything else about him is so high level between the passing and the defensive intelligence and versatility. And he gave the Nuggets a lot of problems like throughout the game. And when the Nuggets got back into the game in the first half, it coincided with him going to the bench. So he's probably going to play more and more and more as this series goes on.
Yeah. Bam hasn't gotten to the line yet in this series. Mm-hmm. And that tends to happen when you're taking face-up twos. And he can still make them efficient. His touch has gotten better and better. But I do think I am really feeling Bam's impact on the series. It's unfortunate he's playing against the best player in the world, his matchup, because Bam is a really special player. I think his stats don't quite communicate his playoff impact. But Bam is the center of their defense and seems to me like the more stable emotional core of this team.
Yeah, and it's crazy because Jimmy still hasn't really had a good scoring game. He was 7 of 19 today. In the first game, he shot even worse from the field.
Yeah,
and he had 21 points first game. I think he was in the teens. Like he hasn't had like a Hemi buckets kind of game. And honestly, the only real series where he's consistently been that guy in these playoffs was the Milwaukee series. Everything after that, he's been like good Jimmy Butler, but not crazy. Is this guy an alien / the best player we've ever seen guy? We haven't really seen that since that Milwaukee series, but I imagine at home, he's probably going to pull one of those out. So just whenever you drop games like this, it just shrinks your margin for error. And the Heat are elite at capitalizing on or not giving you a margin for error. Like they're going to win all the small battles. They're going to get the loose balls. Every time the ball's rolling around on the floor and it seems like you have a chance to pick it up, suddenly it gets kicked over to a Heat player who hits a three. Like all these things, they're getting the bonus early. They make you foul them. You foul them on 3-point shots.
Yeah.
It just all compounds.
Spoelstra calls a timeout. The millisecond you give your fans a reason to stand up.
Yeah.
And you're just like, the Nuggets have been dominating for a few minutes. They must be up 18 because of how fast teams score these days. And it's always single digits. It's always a little bit closer than I expect in favor of the Heat.
Yep. Jokic had 18 points in the third quarter. The Heat got out to that. They had that run in the beginning of the third to make the game close and ultimately take the lead. And then Jokic, I think, and the Nuggets got a little bit of separation. And then Jamal Murray just lost Duncan Robinson around a few screens. Let him blow by him on a drive, which should never happen. And suddenly Duncan Robinson is hot, and now he hits a 28-footer over Aaron Gordon, I think. And suddenly you're not in control of the game anymore. And the Heat just capitalize on all these things. They're so mentally focused. You never have to worry about their mental intensity and energy level in any playoff game anyways. And the Nuggets are the more talented team, as you'll hear every day that this finals is going until it's over. But it's not only talent that wins, as we've seen throughout these playoffs.
I wonder if the Heat will be favored in game 3.
Probably not. If the if the Nuggets were favored by 9 at home, I'm going to guess they're favored by at least 3 or 4 on the road.
Yeah. The Nuggets had the best player on the floor tonight, but there's an argument to be made that the Heat had the second, third, and fourth best players. There's so much pressure on Jamal Murray and so much defensive attention on him when he has the ball.
Yeah. And I think Spoelstra and the Heat did a really good job of trying to make sure that their best players were matched up with the Nuggets' worst players or best players at the right time. So on defense, it seemed like in the second half, especially, every time Jokic and Murray were running the 2-man game, it was Butler and Adebayo who were the defenders in that situation, like pretty much no matter what. And that helped neutralize it a bit. And then conversely, on the other end, whenever Jimmy and Bam were running their 2-man game, it always seemed to be Murray and Jokic who were the ones there. Like Jimmy would find a way to get Murray onto him, and then he would run the 2-man game with Jokic. And they got a lot of good offense out of that. So yeah, the Nuggets are going to have to find a way to adjust to that to try to make it a little bit harder to get those guys into that action. Because the Heat, as we expected, came back with answers.
I wonder if this is a tight series and Jamal Murray continues to get into the paint at will. I wonder if they would consider giving Jimmy's strength a try on Murray. Also, if I were the Nuggets, like I feel like MPJ is just this wrench thrown into the middle of like a Popovich offense. And I wonder if Bruce Brown will be the fifth guy, unless MPJ starts hitting shots and his points the Nuggets can't sacrifice.
Yeah, and it's not just his points, but it's the way defenses react when he gets the ball too, because Bruce Brown, for all of his, intangible skills and basketball smarts and his ability to hit a three from time to time, defenses just won't react the same way when he gets the ball open on the wing compared to MPJ. Like there's a reason it feels like MPJ isn't getting very many open looks, and it's because the Heat seem to be devoting a lot of attention to making sure he doesn't get free. But that still, will generate open looks for other parts of the offense. I think they need to try to keep as much shooting on the floor as possible. As much as I like it, the Earth Tones lineup may need to be interspersed a little bit more with some KCP or some Jamal Murray or some MPJ, just to kind of break up those three, because as valuable as Brown, Green, and Christian Brown are as role players, they're the three weakest shooters along with Gordon in the Nuggets rotation. So if the Heat are going to double off of guys, those are the guys they'll be more willing to double off of and concede those sorts of shots. But I really think a lot of it does just come down to effort. And as Van Gundy and all the coaches say, the biggest adjustment is effort, and just playing hard. So
yeah, it also comes down to 3-point variance, I'm sad to say.
Yes.
The Heat were 17 for 35 from three, and the Nuggets were 11 for 28. Tonight, Max Strus was a flamethrower in the first half, and Gabe was a flamethrower in the second.
And Duncan, too. He hit a couple as well. Yeah, Jimmy hit a couple big threes as well down the stretch of the game, as he is wont to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, I imagine Michael Malone's gonna get in their ass before game 3, and they're gonna come out with a lot more intensity on the defensive end. Because honestly, I didn't think they played with a ton of intensity in game 1 on the defensive end. Like I thought they had some lapses there. Their offense was so good, and the Heat were missing shots that it didn't really come back to bite them in the same way. But the margins in these games are so small. Like they lost this one by 3. If they make one of those off-ball switches more cleanly, that's a different thing. If the refs don't miss that goaltending call towards the end of the game, it's also a different thing. Felt like we should have brought that up. If you don't foul a 3-point shooter, again, different game. So game 3 is going to be, I imagine, a bloodbath. I don't think home court has a huge bearing in the series, as we covered in the first episode, or in the pod after the first game. Neither of these home courts are like super hostile environments. So I'm expecting mostly close games from here on out, because the Heat will never roll over.
shout out to the Heat transition defense. There were like 7 moments tonight where I thought the Nuggets just had an easy transition sequence. And suddenly this fleet of white jerseys is just ready and in position, whether it's zone or man, they're just back where they need to be. And the Nuggets set up for a more laborious half court set.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say also is Jokic did have a pretty magnificent game tonight on the offensive end, at least.
If you make him a scorer, you win.
His touch is just so insane on some of these takes where he's like
nuts.
Got a full head of steam barreling down from the free throw line and then just like at the last second kind of flips it up and it bounces around and drops. And I think, I mean, whenever they have a possession where the ball doesn't just touch Jokic's hands once, I sort of just scream, what are they doing? Yeah. Like every time the ball touches his hands once in a possession, you end up getting a good shot because the defense just either he's going to take it and pretty much every shot he takes is a good shot, or, you know, the defense is going to panic and someone will be open for an open look. So, I mean, I still like the Nuggets in this series. The Heat never make anything easy except for that one time they got swept a couple years ago. But aside from that, in the Jimmy Butler era, nothing is ever easy to beat them. It's a series against them is pulling teeth. Yeah.
To your point about how you want Jokic to get the ball for every important possession until they settle in, as Van Gundy said, it reminds me a little bit of like Steph in the playoffs with Warriors fans, where the Warriors play their beautiful game all year. And then like when it comes down to it in the postseason, Warriors fans and basketball nerds alike are like, Steph pick and roll, please. Can we just hammer that action? There are elements of that because of the Nuggets have their own beautiful style, where a lot of guys get to touch the ball. And since I can't shut up, I also just want to say it makes sense to me that the best passer in the world right now is such a tall guy. Jokic is the altitude of Jokic's eyes. He has passing angles that guards do not, that traditional point guards just don't. And so I sent you those stats about the most passes completed in the NBA. Not only is Jokic at the top for the last 5 years, Sabonis is usually number 2. And so, and you know, those numbers are juiced by dribble handoffs, pick and rolls have become such a huge part of NBA offenses everywhere. But these tall guys with incredible feel have higher passing ceilings than smaller guys. And that's just something Jokic has been forcing me to think about.
Yeah. And to clarify what I meant earlier about him getting the ball on every possession, I don't necessarily think he should shoot on every possession, but just even when it's just a dribble handoff where he doesn't do anything else in the possession besides receive the pass and give it back, it just gets them flowing in a way where the possessions where he's standing in the middle of the floor and they're kind of passing it around the perimeter and it ends up in a Jamal Murray long step back or, you know, a contested 3 from one of their lesser shooters. That's certainly not the offense they want to be going for. And Jokic's superpowers, every time he touches the ball, they get a good shot. And I think they really just need to lean into that.
When he pirouettes deep in the paint, it's just, it's never a bad look for them when Jokic is spinning on the block.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. Peace.